Hello and welcome to day 9 of making a game with Bevy. Exciting. Let's get things started, shall we? Yeah, so last time we kind of were struggling more with this bug that we ran into Bevy, and I think I finally figured it out. Kind of. Not exactly what's going on, but enough where we can sidestep the issue. Actually had nothing to do with is visible like we initially thought. So it's good that it's good that I sort of took a look at it some more. And I did that yesterday just for a little bit. Um, but yeah, let's just jump right into it. So essentially, the one thing I changed here was we had done some things trying to get this to work, and nothing seemed to be working until I changed. Let's see, is it spawn mount? No, I think it's the mod here, yeah. So I removed this load folder, and I wrote like I narrowed it down to this by writing some stuff and get a separate example. And now we can run our example game, switch between the map mode and the not map mode, or rather the battle mode and the map mode. Everything seems to be working pretty good. We can see spiders are still, displaying there. There's some things that we're doing still that we got to work through, like where it's deleting the camera entity, because we have a different camera for the battle view. And I think instead we'll just keep the map camera around and just switch which camera is active, like we were sort of doing before. But before we do any of that, I would like to get like sort of cleaned up. We have like a lot of commented code right now. We can delete a lot of this stuff that we're not using. So that's what I'm gonna go through and do here. Do this part first. And the solution we're relying on how we switch what's rendering between the different views is by using render layers. So essentially, you attach a render layer component and tell it what layer it renders on. So either, like in this case, 0 for our map view or 1 for our battle view. And it's really simple. That's as long as the camera has the same render layer and whatever your active camera is, that's what's going to render. So simply by just changing what camera is active, we sort of fix that issue. So, and I'm also going to go through and clean up sort of. I want to keep this example here, but maybe not in this here. I like this for the simple fact that we can see how we did a trait component, if that makes sense. So I'm just gonna sort of copy this as an example for myself, and just throw that in. Let's see. I'm just gonna throw it in a new file here real quick. Actually, I think if we open up the right folder here, I can throw it in this design file. Example of trait component. Because if you're like me, I'm definitely gonna forget all about this, so it's a good thing just to remember it and store it somewhere, so I can just be like, oh yeah, I had something for trait components that I implemented but it didn't end up using. It's in this readme file. I can remember that at least. So yeah. But yeah, just going through and making sure that everything's looking good for all our files. And then we'll do a build too, and fix up any warnings that we have. Yeah, it's like we don't use texture atlas here. Maybe in the future we will, so I'm just gonna change that to an underscore, like it suggests. And actually here, I'm just not gonna load that in. and we'll have to fix wherever that's being used. Another thing that we're going to do shortly after we're done cleaning up the code is we're going to take a look at how to use Bevy's event systems, event code. And essentially we're going to pass an event from our input to say, hey, go to the battle view, and that's going to happen in a system that sort of is set up to do that. So, but yeah, for right now we're just going to keep piling away here doing this stuff this way. So yeah, just texture atlases can get removed, which I think means we can remove it from our camera movement code, because that's where we're currently switching states, which is a bit weird. I'd also like to get it so that if the player encounters a enemy, it moves us to the battle view as well. And if we have the event system in place, that's a great way of doing that. So let's keep going. Don't need Bevy tile map there. Don't need to load game state. A lot of this stuff we don't need anymore. Keep dumbing this down as much as we can. In fact, all that can get deleted. Nice. There we go. And then we should have a clean build, I think. This over here so I can keep an eye on chat. Alright. See what, that seems like a good place to commit. End up code. Let's just make sure I didn't change anything else here. That looks good to me. Alright. Just close all those, and then let's take a look in our browser at, I think here, yes, the cookbook has something about events. So to send events, use an event writer. To receive events, use an event reader. All that sounds really simple. And the event itself is just a struct where you can pass a some data to whatever you're trying to send it to. So in our case, we would say like, would maybe have like a change game state event, maybe. And then when you go to that event, you would hit the we would pass along with the event the game state that you're changing to. And then whenever we want to change game states, we just call our event writer for game state. I wonder if that works, if we could actually do like a resource and like, not like a resource, but like, never mind. Let's scratch that. I'm not thinking straight, but yeah. We could even have like a system that just essentially is like this, where we're waiting for the event and then we change the game state here. That way we're doing it like the same way. We're like always sending like an event to change game state. And I think that's gonna make sense. And then and if we do that, then we get like a system here that lets us know when game state has changed, and we can do some additional things there. It's not exactly what I would like for that. I think I've said this before, but I would like to have like a system set on any enter. So like when you enter any game state, so like something like this, and you know, ignore my poor naming convention, but yeah, something like this where if the game state changes anyway, then that you would have whatever number of systems you would want to run in that case. In the meantime, we're just going to just keep doing things the way we're doing it right now, where when you enter things, we do different systems, and when you exit those, you do other things. Yeah, like for example, this map view, we're not actually destroying map really anymore. We're just doing some different things. So make sure we get the Rust analyzer working here. Otherwise, I'm just going to get annoyed. And then yeah, let's take a look at using events for this. I think it's going to go a lot smoother because it means that essentially our spawn here is going to be a system that runs. And then when it gets the event, like, hey, I'm going to this particular view, then it's going to run this code here. If that makes sense. And actually, we could just, rethinking this, the only event data that we really need to send is battle location at the moment. We might have more stuff in here to send in the future. Other data like what enemy you came across and stuff like that. But for right now, just battle location will do. And then this would turn into like an actual, because you wouldn't have that, right? Like you would have, if we go back to here to kind of look at how this is done, an event reader. And we'll just say battle events. And the data that's getting passed is battle view, which maybe we include that in a different struct, right? Like a more complicated struct, which has more things in it. But for right now, like I said, that's fine. Yeah, so the battle location in this particular instance would be event dot, how do we get the data out? .0? Is there a .0? Guess so. Bevy wasn't showing it to me, or Rust Analyzer wasn't showing it to me, but it is now, so. And I think this is iterator, yeah. ITER for iteration. Okay, and then some of these change back to like what they were before, which is just a standard Bevy way of doing things. Because again, this is like a regular system now. And we can call this handle battle events. I like the name there. And this would be a system that we run sort of all the time, because it's only gonna run when we have a event to process. You need to add your custom event types. Yes, so we have to do that as well. Ah, I see. Then we're gonna do this a little bit differently. Just slightly differently. We're gonna take and have a new struct called battle event. And then it's going to have a battle location. inside of it. Oh, cool. And actually our event now is just a straight up battle event, which is pretty neat. And it doesn't look like it needs to inherit anything, but we're just gonna go ahead and give these debug in case we need to debug something in the future. It's easy enough to do right now, and actually we can do clone and copy as well. Although I don't think we'll need to clone or copy these, and we might drop copy at some point for the battle event, but it's good to have those. And then I think for this we'll also want partial equals and equals. Can we not have equals? Oh, we're missing that. Never mind. Okay. Just for future use case, we may want those things, so we might as well add them now, I think. Alright, so we have this handle battle event that we're calling from here. Handle battle events system. And we need to bring this in from the scenes, so it'd be like gameplay, scenes, handle battle events, and this needs to get man, that's kind of messy. How do we want to export that? Oh, we're already pulling in scenes, so we probably can just do scenes battle. That's not too bad. I'm still gonna name it handle battle events though, because I think we might handle some other type of events for battling, and so maybe this is like should be renamed handle on initial battle event, or I don't know. It sounds kind of dumb. Something else though, maybe. Alright, so here we can delete that, and instead of bringing in materials and the asset server, which I don't think we need anymore. Nope. Do we even need commands as well? No. So we can get rid of a lot of that. And instead we will just bring in, and again, this is just temporary until we battle event writer. This is just a temporary until we sort of figure out how we actually spawn the battle event, which is going to be done somehow with some sort of collision detection between a player and an enemy. A very basic collision detection, but some sort of collision detection in any case. And then we say send here, battle event. Let's do it this way, scenes, battle event. Maybe I'm getting a little too verbose there and I should just import battle event, but this is fine. Battle location is battle location mountains. Right, we just have to make this public for that to work. Okay, so now we should have enough code there that it works and as expected, and we should get into the battle sort of scene view. No problem. And I need to call run, not build, if I want to see it in action. I do have some concern with maybe, yeah, oh yeah, we forgot one key thing. We need to add the event here. Add event. Oh, dot. There we go. And perhaps in the future we might. I mean, I already know I want to split this up more. Like, this is way too big of a plugin already. Like, it's too much to look at. I don't like it, but yeah. Okay, cool. So that works as expected, and it spawns our entities and everything that we'd expect to get spawned. So I think next we'll want to handle well, next I think there's a bug that we gotta fix. For some reason the player sprite on the map view isn't showing up anymore. I think that's related to possibly spawning the chunks and despawning them, and the rendering order in which they get sort of created in has something to do with that. It could be that our player sprite isn't rendering at all anymore for some reason, so we likely need to clean that up. So I'm gonna go take a look at that and see what's going on with how we're handling that. Make sure the assets are still here. Characters, address, player sprite, still there. Okay. We spawn material, we spawn the child, we insert it with render layer 0. We're using the child builder to do it, which is the same thing that we're doing here. And this one works. Oh. Just looking at this, we don't set the position anymore when we spawn the player, other than it set it to 0, 0. And I wonder if this movement isn't getting ran. We didn't see it in the middle of the screen though, so it seems unlikely that the sprite is even rendering. Unless this timing thing that we wrote isn't working right too. We have made a lot of changes, so it could be possible that we broke something along the way. We removed the timing thing completely. That's right, because we wanted to handle that in a different way. That's for the animation timing, but no, there should be the timing resource that we have here. I don't think we have an update system being called. Does this work yet? Oh, hey, look, it does work. Oh, we are calling timing update still. So the question is, do we get here? I don't necessarily think the positioning stuff here is broken, but I just want to double check. Thought we had some code that ran based off of something else, but maybe I'm wrong. So that definitely works. Okay. And map exists, so it should move us to the right position. I think it's just rendering behind the tile map And the way of checking that's fairly easy, is if we go to generate map, sorry, the map view, and we don't spawn these chunks, we should see the map without the tile map. We should see like the map view without the tile map. In which case we should be able to see all the sprites that are on the screen. And we do see the player sprite, so that's good. And the player sprite is not moving at all, which isn't great, but it's still there. So why would our tile map render on top? Actually unsure about that. Because it has a higher Z index, so it should render above this tile map, because this tile map has a Z index of 0. Just trying to think why that would occur. And we do know that some of our other like sprites that we do render show up on top, like these ones. They just get added to the world, if you can call it that, later on after the tile map has already spawned. And we're rendering these at 10, which is what I would expect, and I'm sure enemies using 10 as well. Position, 12 actually. Let's make that 11 actually. Just we might move that back to 10. Wonder if that's the issue. I can't see how though. I'm pretty sure it broke when we started spawning the map later on. Just not sure why, because it should, in theory, still render on top. One thing we can try is assigning, I don't think this is going to do anything, but if the chunks are children of the tile map entity, we could try setting a, oh, excuse the yawn, we could try we could try describing here what render layer it's on. Not exactly right there. Sorry. I don't know if this is going to necessarily change anything at all, but we can at least try it. Let's render layers. Our player sprite isn't showing up. Also, another weird thing is that the spawner sprite is the same on the same Z index as the player sprite, and yet it renders even if we spawn the chunks late. Like, so we're gonna despawn and we come back and it's still there. And those don't have a higher Z index, so it's a little weird that the player isn't showing up at all when the tile map is rendering. And the thing is, we don't have access to the chunks when they spawn. Would be nice if we did, if like spawn chunk gave us an entity. Gives us a tile map result, which is what exactly? It gives us T, or tile map error. And in this case, what is T? It is an empty object, so it gives us nothing. It just tells us, okay, it worked. Huh. I don't necessarily like that. I think it should return the entity that it spawns, but it looks like it doesn't even spawn it here. It sends an event to spawn it. Which I guess that makes sense because you don't have like the commands here. But yeah, there's some system that spawns the chunks. So you don't really have access to the chunks to add your own components to them, which is a bit of a bummer. If we wrote our own tile map renderer, we could do something like that. It's just I'd rather just keep using Bevy tile map and work around that issue. And we don't even know if it's because we're spawning chunks or if it's the render layers that's the problem. We have other sprites that render on top, so it seems likely that we're doing something here incorrectly. Now if we can figure out what that is, maybe we can solve the issue. Like if I remove what render layer this is associated with, does that do anything? Oh, you know what the issue is? And I know how to solve it, is that we're setting the transform here for this particular thing, but the player, which is higher up in the chain, isn't associated with that. So we need to somehow know that this is the player sprite for the map view, and that's what we update visually when we're moving stuff around. Whereas this one doesn't care. This one's always got like a static transform, but this one, the transform needs the sort of, like this has to, here, let me just start writing some code here, and then it will make more sense. We need a insert here with a transform. Default is not fine in this case. We want from XYZ. And then you also need to insert the global transform. That can just be default. Yeah, so essentially, oh, you know what we probably can do is, no, this is, yeah, I think what we might be able to do is use global transform instead and set that there. And then this doesn't need a transform. And then in our movement code, we need to access the player sprite, which is a new component that we're going to add to it. It's just a tag. It's just a tag that says I'm the player sprite, and lets us move it around, so. There we go. And then in here, we just need to import it. Alright, there's the current position though. Oh, that makes this more complicated. Not really though, because what we'll do is we'll move current position, which I know should be there, or well, kind of on the player, but we don't really need to know. Do we need to know where it is on the map anywhere else other than the map view? I'm gonna say no for right now. We might change our minds on that later. But yeah, so this would look more like this. And then we'll implement default on that so that we can call default here. So it's a little bit more than a tag. It does keep track of like what the current position is on the road that they are on. Because remember, this is like just a U32 or U size, which keeps track of where on the road path they are. Yeah. And instead of wrapping it, we'll probably want to do something different there as our sort of gameplay code emerges. We'll have different behaviors there. But yeah, the goal is to get more of this sort of gameplay level code finished today. I think we're making good progress on that, but this obviously the player not rendering is a bug that we got to fix though. So yeah, if we look around here, the player's back on the road and he's moving around, and if we switch back to this, there's not an issue except for that the sprite here disappeared. Which is likely because this player is on 0 and we need to use a global transform here as well. So translation Z is 12. We'll just set it to 12 here. And this can just be that. Okay, we're gonna have to figure out like as far as like positioning on the Z axis, like what we're gonna do there. I think instead of having these magical numbers that we have right now, we'll want to implement something different. Okay, so we're still not seeing that sprite, which I think it has to do with let me think about why. We have the global transform, which should set that to something that we expect. And that worked here. However, we're setting the transform still here. I wonder if that's causing the issue. Maybe if the transform is something other than default, it overrides the global transform. Because there is a system that updates the global transform with the local transform. And then we just need to change this a little bit to change the translation. Honestly, I think 10 is probably acceptable. It's a floating point number. Still not rendering. has the right layer. Oh, you know what it might be? I think there's something in the battle scene that assumes something. Maybe? No. Okay. Question is, why did this break when we moved the global transform for this child? The parent still doesn't have a transform. But this does have a global transform. I wonder if there's a way of marking the local transform to not update. Because there's this transform propagation system that updates the global transform. And in this particular case, we don't want to update it. Like, and the other thing that's weird too is that the parent here, which player, it doesn't have a transform. So that shouldn't actually cause an issue. Because if these are just regular transforms, that should work. Like, this should restore back to where the player isn't showing, but I see the player, which is weird. And then if I swap over to the map view, I don't see the... So, like, what did we change? So, something changed between the two. Now we gotta figure out what that was. The only difference was we set it to 12. I mean, maybe that's why it's messed up. I don't think it is. And the other thing too is we inserted the player sprite component here. Okay, I think we're just not gonna make them children. And let's see if that works. Because if we're handling the data slightly differently now, I mean technically we don't need it to be a child anymore, and they're good. Both of these are gonna be handled very differently, anyways. Cases. So does that fix our issue? And if so, then I think we just keep it like that for right now. I see the player sprite. I still don't see the animated one. Like, what happened? What did we do? It's got a layer of 1. It has the right transform information. We didn't change that. We didn't change any of the battles spawning stuff. Like the background's not, doesn't have a higher Z. The orthographic camera is not any different from what it used to be. This has a render layer of 0. I don't think that does anything, but maybe that causes the player to battle sprite to mess. I don't know. It seems unlikely, but let's just change that back. I don't understand. Does it have to do with the animation stuff? That's still there. Yeah, I just don't understand. It's exactly how it was before. Hmm. Some of these. We switch back to the regular transform. It's not the global transform anymore. Which means that we shouldn't be causing issues with that. Our atlas is correct, like it's the right file. I'm feeling like I'm missing like one really small detail. It's just gonna click when I get that. Either that or this is some weird bug with Bevy, but it should just show up when we switch. It's not showing up here. Translation, Z-axis 12. 12 is way higher than what should be necessary to render it. Like really this should work if we set it to 1 or even 2 because the background image is on 0. Yeah, but yet we still don't see it. Alright, so I want to know if it's even rendering the sprite. No, I don't remember what the environment variable is for that. There's a thing in here that tells you though. Not in that. That environment variables. There we go. There's one in here called cargo manifest directory. That's what it was. And then we basically just Darn it. Just type it, I guess. Oops. Code heavy rogue like prototype pen value. Okay, there we go. We want set value. Alright, there we go. That worked. Alright, so now if I capture a screen here and we take a look at it, the render doc's really cool for figuring out rendering issues like this. Like we know it probably is there, but we're not for sure. And so we can kind of take a look here. And in fact, if I look here, I can see that it is indeed rendering. And we can look at the mesh viewer to see what its indices are, like its vertex positions are. And its vertex positions are like not what I would expect. Like the z axis is completely wrong. It's like negative 0.001, which doesn't make any sense between this and let's see, solid color. Oh, I thought there was a way of getting it textured here. Yeah, essentially it's just a quad that gets rendered, and that's all it is for a sprite. So yeah, something's happening where the transform isn't working. Like clearly we have a bad transform because our Z position that's going out to the GPU is not, well, actually never mind. Now that I think about it, negative 0.001 does make sense. Kind of. Because our orthographic camera has a far of 1000 and a near of 0. Kind of, again, because it's reversed. Yeah, we want 0 to be the closest and plus far to be the farthest in 2D. So we offset the camera's translation by far and use a right-handed coordinate system. So if it's like -1, I think that's closer to the screen or closer to the camera in this case. It's not -1, it's like negative 0.001 or whatever. So technically it should render on top, but it's not. It's rendering underneath for some reason. There's our draw call. So that's what it's drawing. Our wireframe mesh, depth test. I thought there was one that shows you. Yeah, see, like here the draw call is the whole screen. I wonder if it's just too small. Maybe well, but that doesn't make sense because look at our quad size, it's huge. So how could it be too small? Like it's like taking up the whole screen. Almost. And we know the texture's right because we can see it bound here as an input. And that's the right texture. Yeah, when we run, it's showing up behind everything. Maybe, like, what happens if I zoom this camera out? Nothing, right? Because it's a completely different camera. Oh boy. It's a weird issue. Ours 1000. We're moving the camera back 1000 pixels. 1000.1 pixels. Wait. No, we're not. We're moving it back by 99. 999. Is this 1000? 1000 minus. Oh my goodness. Standard it, please. Yeah, it's just like moving it back. Or moving it forward 999 pixels. Actually, yeah, so it's moving it farther away from like 0, 0. This makes sense. And then the far is 1000. So when we say something is 10 pixels, like the camera is 1000 pixels away, so you have all that space between where you can store information. So like we're saying the sprite is 10 pixels away. So to figure out like in like what its C would be, you can again like use your calculator if you can't do math in your head like me. And so you just take that and you divide that by 10. Kind of. Wait, that's not right. The depth is, well, you're not going to be able to figure out the depth very easily because it's not going to be like a percentage like that. It's going to be yeah, like that, which is what we have, except we have negative 0, 1 for some reason. Which doesn't make any sense because how did we get negative? Like what in the shader made it negative? I don't understand that. It should be, if I could edit this, it should be 0.001, not negative 0.001. And the fact that it's negative 0.001 is really strange to me. I'm just trying to find that. These don't have any info. I was just trying to find like the like texture bindings and stuff like that, but it's saying no resources. It's really weird. But we should be able to find like the memory for the transform. It's probably one of these buffers. There is a way of viewing what the data in the buffer. Don't remember how to do that. The memory maybe? Okay, bind buffer. This is, it says it's an image. It's not gonna be easy to figure out which one of these is what, because nothing's named properly, so that's fun. But I would like to see what the transform is that gets sent to the shader. It doesn't make sense to me. Like we have like we're setting the sprite to 12, or rather, actually, we're setting it to 1. Wait, so how did we even get 0.01? That's a great question. Negative 0.001. No, that's right. Sorry. Yeah, because it would be, we got 0.01 with 10. It'd be 1 divided by 1,000. But it should be positive, not negative, which it's confusing to me that it's negative. This is the vertex position coming in isn't negative. So it has to be something with like if I just do this, is it gonna work because of some weird thing that I don't understand? Like maybe the scale is messing up the translation too? That could definitely be. Oh yeah, that's gonna fail because we're still running the code. If you see a weird linking error like this, it usually means that it can't like edit the file. I don't know why it does that, but yeah. Okay, well we saw it for like a brief second. And that's possibly due to the background having like a position of 0, 0. But that doesn't make sense though. But if we set this to 1, it should show up. It should be on top. Like, doesn't make any sense. Like we don't see the sprite at all anymore now. Like, maybe this works because it's just 0. Maybe negative is right because the projection like towards the screen is negative. But it doesn't make sense to me why it's not showing up. Like, what if we do something stupid like this? Totally use fractional values like this in a 2D renderer, and that should be valid and still display it over top. You might have some Z fighting if you get too close with the other like layer though. But yeah, even that I can't see like, what the sprite is. This is really frustrating. Oh, launch again. Alright. F12, capture that please. Close that. Okay, again, same thing. Should be able to take a look at the output. Draw call is right. So it's still negative 0.001. That's what I would expect it to be. So if we go back here and we say -1, what does it do then? And why does it display? We're gonna have to run it here. Close this. Once that's done compiling, we'll launch it. Yeah, we already know what that issue is. We'll fix that eventually. Okay. So why are you like the way you are? Okay, so our depth buffer isn't working as expected then. So now we have a different order of draw calls here. Like before we had the background rendering first. Because this is the background here. And then this is the actual player sprite. So we have an order of like rendering, like the order of operations for rendering is wrong. The depth buffer should take care of that though. And render on top. But because it's -1, it's not going to. If it's +1, it should still render on top. Except that I'm so confused here, man. There's something happening like behind the scenes that's messing this up, that's for sure. Yeah, I want to make this 1 so it's not like at 0, 0. That way it gets transformed in some way. And then I want to make the player 2. Like, we shouldn't have to go through this much trouble to get this working. Like, it should just work. And something's going on where we don't have the proper depth buffer or something. Not sure what. Okay, so let's take a look in render doc to see what's going on there. Alright. Alright, so now we have background renders first. Well, it draws first, and then the sprite draws second, and it should be on top, but it's not. It has a negative 0.002. This has a negative. It's still 0. What? Did I not save that change? Is this saved? It should be at 1. Is it because it's under a battle entity? And because of that, it doesn't know what to do. Well, if that's the case, then this is really confusing because it shouldn't be. This shouldn't have it. This top level entity shouldn't have a transform. Only the children of it. But regardless, it should still be 0. Or it should still be 1. Like it would resolve to 1. It's 0 though, which is so strange. It should be negative 0.001, not 0. I really hope this is not another Bevy bug. Like, it should just work. There's no reason why it isn't, and either I'm doing something really dumb or there's something up with Bevy. And it could be that the way we're doing this, like, custom orthographic projection is causing some issues. Our near and far should be the same though, regardless, so that when we actually create the projection, excuse me, when we create the projection matrix, it should be right. And that's done here. Width and height divided by 2 to get the right thing. This is initially 1000 by default. We're just storing it there and setting it here. Difference distance. Pretty sure Z difference is what we want. Optimize for 2D, assuming the camera points towards negative Z, which it does. Wait, points towards negative Z. Yeah, it does, because we move the camera back away from 0. Not in the negative, but in the positive. So going back is in the negative. That makes sense. Yeah, our modded orthographic code looks fine. And I'm almost positive if we use the regular orthographic bundle here. I'll try it just to see. Doesn't hurt. It does mean that our background's not going to be like in the right place, but that's fine because we can. If we at least know it's a bug with our custom camera, then we can maybe figure it out. Okay, so that's interesting. Nothing renders with a regular camera. Huh? That is not what I was expecting. Like what? Okay, back to render doc. Oh no. Alright. Capture that. Yeah, there isn't even any calls. And we're still setting the camera, like, the render layer on it. Yes. Maybe because it's nested in this entity here. Like, I really am curious if we just pull this out, or even just call commands directly here. I don't know if nesting is maybe as reliable as what I think it is. Yeah. Just don't insert that resource. It'll be all good. We'll just recreate entities and keep them around forever. You'll never get back to the map view. Oh, linking error, because yeah, I need to close the. Run, please. Want to work on more gameplay code. I don't want to have to focus on trying to fix these kind of issues. Okay, alright. Hey, that's fine. So, at least we know why it's occurring is because this, maybe by default, it assumes there's some sort of transform for parent-child. Like, is there a default transform on entities that I just don't know about? Be really weird if there is. But yeah, so if we try to get out of the battle view, then it crashes, which is expected. But it is working, and we could probably. I can show you what it should look like, and we can check the Z index as well. If I can stop typing in the console here. Ignore the bug there for a second, please. There we go. But yeah, so this is what it should look like here. And again, you can sort of highlight the draw call, all that sort of thing. There is a way of doing it what is it? Not draw call, but like essentially the pixel overdraw. Maybe I'm thinking of something different, but I thought they had pixel overdraw. But yeah, so that's what it should look like. But let's look at the z-index. See, that's what z-indexes should look like right here. So it was all because, like, this makes way more sense to my brain now. Yeah, like the background has a greater z-index. Although that doesn't really make sense to my brain. Hold on. No, that does, I think. Because it's further away. Sort of. Kind of? Maybe? Alright, so there's some weird issue where if you have... Now, the question is... Now that we figured it out, what the issue is, another question that I have is... I think this is... Child builder, not parent. To be more accurate there. Okay, but the other question is... What if we spawn and then insert a transform? What if this does have a transform and a global transform? Like that. I don't know how those got inserted. Alright. So if it does have a transform, perhaps it will actually render things in the correct order. Again, if I can remember to close the open program. Yeah, okay. So I think that's a bug, because I think if your child entities have rendering elements, but your parent does not have a transform, it should not affect the transform of the children at all. Like, these should be treated as global objects when rendering. And it seems like it's creating some mystery transform behind the scenes because it has a parent that is somehow setting everything negatively. I don't know how without looking into Bevy source code, but that does seem like a bug. Just saying. It also means that we have to be careful here because anything that goes in this battle entity will have a default transform of 0, 0, 0, which I think means that these will render on top of it. Like, this will always render on top of it, which is what we want in this particular case. But like, for example, if we have UI elements that are also part of this battle entity, we would have to figure out something else for that. So, but yeah, render doc can help you figure out issues like these. Maybe not exactly what was going on. We still had to change code and mess around to try to figure it out, but I'm still a little confused about the z-index. I think I have a hard time visualizing things without actually seeing it. So, I think I would want something that try to help me picture that a bit more. Let's see, near plane is 0, far plane is 1,000. Our aspect ratio is, I don't know, some weird, what is it, 16:9 or something. I don't know what to set that. I don't think that is fine. We'll just change this to 1. There we go, that's right. Technically speaking. Sort of. Anyways, um, yeah. So I guess we want to maybe check to see if this is an existing issue in Bevy. Let's see. Sprite. I don't know what else to search for here. Maybe sprite and transform. Sorry, just checking out some emails on my phone. Yeah, I'm not really seeing anything here. I'm not going to create an issue right now. I'm going to ask about it and see if anyone else has run across this in the Discord later. Once I'm done streaming, I'm just going to go back to doing what we were doing here. Cleaning up code, getting more gameplay ready stuff going. I think it's really time that we sat down here and did something a lot cooler. So than struggling with bugs all the time. Like I'm kind of getting frustrated with that. So let's get back on the gameplay sort of aspect of things, and not really worry about the bugs anymore, because they are fixed. We fixed it, kind of. All right, so we have this spider sprite spawning, and we want to basically call our event when the player gets close to an enemy. Yeah, so in this particular case, and this doesn't move, and really we should probably do, oh, we are setting the transform here. Okay, cool, that's what I like to see. So it already has the transform, so, and this has that. Okay, cool. Yeah, so we need like a system that detects if a battle should occur, because the player is close enough to that. So I think we're just gonna include this in player for right now, but this is gonna be like a really basic collider system. Collision check. Did I not spell that right? Collision. There we go. Fixed. And then we will mod that into here. Collision. Function. Yeah. Rest the analyzer, you're fine. Alright, query player. I want to query for the player. Sprite and its transform. And that would look more like this so that we can get the syntax of this right. And we want to have this be called the player query and another one called enemy query. And this one would be enemy. And we would it also has a transform that we're looking for. Alright, and then finally we need to go to our input and copy this stuff because we will need this. Which means that we gotta pull in Bevy. Use Bevy prelude. And then we're gonna have to pull in scenes here, game state. It's kind of nice having everything under game, but yeah, it's neither here nor there. So we're just gonna do a player query, and I'm sure there's more optimized ways of doing this. Right now, we don't really care. I mean, honestly, we only have one player entity, but we're doing a for loop. Not really required. Here we are doing it. I know there's better ways of doing that. Yeah, so enemy and alright, and we don't even care about any other data except for the transform right now. We'll call this enemy transform. And same thing for the player here. We don't care about the actual player data, just the transform for right now. We'll call this one player transform. So basically just a nested loop, and we want the player on the outside because it makes more sense to do it that way since there's only one player. And in the future we'll probably change this from a loop to like a, I'm pretty sure there's like a first or something. I don't know what it's called, but basically the first match of the query. I know that exists. I don't remember what it's called, but I know it exists. I can find out later. But this works for right now. And so we're gonna use this. And then, so all we're really doing is a check here of the translation. We're going to do distance. And why not squared? Because we don't need it to be super accurate. And then you do enemy transform translation. And if that is less than, let's say 16 pixels, no, 8 pixels, 16? No, 8 pixels is good. That's less than 8 pixels away, then we want to spit out our event. So first we'll change the game state. View game state, battle view, and then battle event writer dot send battle event, and then battle location. Alright, so we're gonna just change up some stuff here real quick. Just copy this. This is what I should have done in the first place. Just copy it. But that works too. Okay, so a collision check. It's real simple. It's not hard at all. I will unwrap that because we don't care if it fails or not. If it fails and it panics, whatever. It's fine for right now. We can address that later if we need to. We can use the backtrace to figure out where it panics and then go from there. Is it great? No. Does it work for now? Yes. That has been my mantra for this entire game so far. And then we want to add that system collision check. Dot system. But we want to add this to the map view on update. Map view on update. And it's called with system. Without the comma too, please. And then we need to make sure that this is accessible. And we do mod it here. We don't publicly mod it though. So let's publicly mod that so that we can bring it in. And we're probably just gonna do it like this. Gameplay, player, collision. Let's just call it check. It's already called collision up further, so check makes more sense. There we go. And if we run this, we should be able to get to the battle view when the player and the enemy sort of collide with each other. It's a very simple collision check. It's just checking to see if the distance is less than 8 pixels. Maybe I should do an equals there. But essentially, if they're right on top of each other, this will run. And the question is, how long do we have to wait? Very long. Let's respawn the map. It doesn't take very long to run it again. Okay, this one should go a lot faster. The question is, this time, is our player going to get to the spawner before a spider spawns in the correct location? Yes. So that's no good. That's our typical panic that we know about already. They'll have to fix that. That one's way too far away. Don't have very much luck with this so far. Anyway, I'll wait on this one. Long enough anyways. The question is, I guess, will we have a spider spawn on the road? I really hope so. Every 10 seconds anyone should spawn. There we go. Okay, so this should be a good test. We just have to wait a little bit until it's our player sprite has reached its goal. It's kind of boring to watch. I apologize for that. We could add like a ton more spawners too. It is kind of simpler to start with one at first, but we've kind of established that that part is working, so maybe we should spawn more. Well, that did not work as expected. What are we doing wrong here? So our player has a transform and a player sprite. That should definitely get iterated over. Maybe 8 is too small. Maybe it needs to be 16. They should have the exact same translation value though at that particular point. Okay, one thing I'm gonna do for our sanity too is in the player movement code, the timing, we're going to sort of speed this up a ton. That looks gross, but that will work. Oh wow, yeah, look at that. Our player is fully zooming. Okay. It definitely should have ran there. Let's do some debugging here. Obviously we didn't get there, but let's see if we've gotten here. I'm pretty sure our enemy has... Oh wow, our system isn't running at all. Well, at least it isn't getting here. Maybe it is running. Let's try it. Oh, you know what? It's gonna take 10 seconds. My bad. So you get for expecting it right away. Yeah, so just give it 10 seconds and then we should be able to see. Okay, yeah, so it's definitely getting there. So I guess we just need the output transforms then to see like what's happening. And we only really care about the translation. Oops. And the enemy transform. Our enemy transform is 0, 0. Well, that would explain why this is not working. So the question is, we'll leave that at 16. The question is though, why is that not working? Enemy. We can see the player updating, but the enemy's not. I mean, obviously it has the right position. This is the enemy. It's at least rendering in the right position. But when we look at the enemies and loop over them, the transform says it's at 0, 0, 11. Oh wait, no, the player transform says that. Oh, interesting. Not the enemy. The enemy's right, the player transform's wrong. We're looking at the transform here. And the player sprite for the movement code, right? Oh, global transform, we never changed that back. I think this will work fine with just a regular transform now. That should fix our issue. Yeah. Hey, we did it. Sweet. Alright, so we have our player moving around the map, and when it encounters an enemy, it gets close enough to an enemy. We have this event that fires that takes us into the battle view. We can get out of it by doing that. Alright, sweet. So at this point, we should transfer the information about the enemy to the I'll get rid of the debug first, but we should transfer the information about the enemy / enemies to this event that we're writing. So how do we detect enemies, right? Like we have let's look at the readme real quick here, because there's an example image I want to use to sort of help. highlight this. Get over here. Alright, so you have the player coming along, and they land on this enemy here, or maybe we even detect as far away as like one tile. How do we maybe include this other spider here, or maybe even this one in our check? Not just the first one as what you're battling. And then cap the number as well to how many will fit on a battle screen. So that is a great question. I think what we want to do is change how this query works a little bit. And do something a little differently. Sorry, I'm losing my place because I'm in the README. So what we're doing right now is just checking like all the enemies and seeing if one is close enough to the player, and then changing to the battle screen. And that sort of works for this one particular use case, but it definitely doesn't let us like, it's not very dynamic. It doesn't let us do other things. Instead, what I think we should do is have a vector up here, enemies within range, and that's a vec new. So basically a list of enemies that are within range, and then we widen this. We say any enemies that are within 64 pixels, or let's see how many tiles is that. 16 divided by 6, that's 4 tiles. Maybe that's too far. 32 pixels? So 2 tiles away. And then let's make that exact too, so that way we can make sure they're included. We then have sort of like this new quasi, we'll just make it a tuple for right now, but yeah, and we'll store this, let distance equal distance, and the tuple is going to be the distance to the player, and the enemy transform. Sure, why not? Okay. And that gets pushed onto the vec, which needs to be mutable. Okay, and then once that's done, we've looked at all the enemies and we've added them to this list. Then we can take the enemies within range and sort them, which we can't do because it's a loading point. Because ORD is not implemented on F32. There is, I think we can use sort by though. Yeah. And then, no, there is a way of doing this sort. I don't remember it though. What was it? Best sort F32. Hey, that link is purple. I've been here before. Partial compare, that's what it is. Oh, right. Partial compare b dot 0. Okay, so we sorted them. This has to be an and. to unwrap it. Okay, I don't think it has to be an and. F32's copy. No, it does have to be an and. Okay. I guess the reference makes sense in this case. Still. Okay, so now we've sorted the list. Now we can loop through the list. Distance, enemy, transform. And it's within range. Okay, and then now we want to say if distance less than 8, do this. Hello? We gotta dereference it. Okay. Yes, it's not used. We might use that in the future though. Okay, and then we can, in the future now, we have the option of looping through this again and taking other enemies that maybe are like 2 tiles away instead. So there's some options there. And it still works, which is good. Cool. Now that's some gameplay code. I like that. I mean, how can you not? So at this point, like, I'm feeling really good. Like, we sort of have this battle view showing up when we need it at the right time. I think next up we want to basically pass the entity. So like we need to change this query like this, and then the battle event is going to take a enemy entity. You can't have a battle without an enemy, right? So that should always be there. Enemy entity. And then here, just pass that to there. Not exactly like that, because we're gonna have to probably clone it. That's my guess. Oh, we have to pass it to. Actually, I think it's copy. Entity's copy, right? But yeah. Cool. In that case, we can just do this, and then enemy entity would be that. Cool. So now that just dereference it. Alright. So now that the enemy entity is being passed to our battle event, we can go back over here to the battle. And when we sort of spawn this other stuff, we can spawn the enemy graphics for that. I mean, we can spawn those ahead of time. But the battle, like in the battle, we now know who's attacking at the very least with the entity, which will give us access to like the entity. Like we can pull components off the entity, like health and like other attributes that we're gonna add. And I've been thinking about how to do that. Trying to think of a good way of doing that. We can actually get rid of this. and then just have a way of getting back to the map view. Yeah, get rid of that because we already have a way of getting to the battle view. Yeah, so essentially that entity allows us access to the enemy's information, all the data about the enemy. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, and see, it didn't trigger there because we didn't land within that 8 pixel sort of, like, that's further than 8 pixels away, so it didn't trigger a collision. And it looks like all the spiders spawned in that one spot. Oh, no, there's, I guess the last one was right there. So we had 2 spawning in the same spot, and then the other one spawning in the other spot. So then we can see how many times we can go back and forth between this view. It's a lot. It's forever, basically. Not forever, but you know what I mean. That is pretty cool. So we have the workings of, like, sort of how the game works. We're definitely changing some things, like the player moves really, really fast right now. We want to slow that down. We also want to interpolate the player's movement, which means I think we're going to rework the timing and stuff. In fact, now would be a good time to do that. So if we go back to the player movement code, let's get rid of all this stuff. Actually, we still need some of it. Sorry. But it's going to change quite a bit. So essentially, this is still going to be the same, kind of, up until this point here. Yeah. Actually, no, sorry. Even this is all going away. All the timing stuff's going away. Yeah, that's how I want to do it. Okay. And then we will remove this here. Make this, well, no, it's fine like that because we're going to add an if statement here. And the player query actually needs to go further up here. So essentially we want to grab like the current road position, and we're going to lerp the player there, or interpolate the player there, sorry. One pixel is good. So if we are close enough, then we change what tile you're targeting, and then yeah, so essentially that's kind of the same, but it's gonna run way too fast. Alright, I gotta plug in my headset. Give me 1 second here. Alright, let's do this. So we need to calculate the distance to the current road position, and we can sort of delete that. So our current road position is in not the right coordinates, not what we want. We want them in like a floating point sort of coordinate system. So we're gonna do this. Current road position equals back to new, and this. There we go. We can delete that code. And then we need to calculate the distance between the player's current position and the road position. So distance equals current road position. Current road position dot distance. And again, I'm just going to use squared because it works and well enough for this particular use case, and it's faster than the other distance check. And we're going to be doing this one quite a lot, so it's good to do it this way. Yeah, that looks right. Okay, and then we have to move the transform as well. So let's do that here. Yeah, I think that's what we want to do. Translation. Transform.translation. Current road position. So then we need some sort of scalar value. And I think this is where player sprite becomes a little bit more complicated because we're going to need a distance. Let me add a comment for that too. Distance in the range of 0 to 1 until you reach the destination. And current position doesn't make sense because it's not actually current index of the road. Road path position that the player is traveling to. Let's get real verbose there. Alright, so wrong thing. Movement, thank you. There we go. Alright, so now we have player.distance. So what we do here is player.distance equals player.distance plus, do it this way, plus equals 0.01. Let's go real slow. And then we're gonna need Bevy's time and stuff as well here. So I don't remember how to do that, so I'm gonna go look real quick. Examples to many sprites maybe? Yeah, this time. And then time dot delta is what we want, I think. Actually, we did this in camera. I should just go look there. Delta seconds. What's the difference between delta and delta seconds though? There's no, I guess delta's a duration, but there's no documentation for that, so. Oh, there is. It just doesn't show on the other view. The delta between the current and last tick as f32 seconds. That's what I want. Cool. Yeah, so we're just moving by a small bit. We're keeping it in step with our time. And then that's our scalar value here is player.distance. And then if we reach our distance, and yeah, what we want to do is set the distance to equal 0. But only actually if we have another road. If we have a road, yeah, actually. this whole check here has to move up higher. If we don't have a road path, we need to do nothing, and then here. Oops. Have too many somethings somewhere right here, right? Oh, it's just saying unknown word. Okay, that's fine. Oh, expects a, can I swizzle this? XY. Ah, come on. XY0 is what I want, but that doesn't exist. Extend? Oh. Huh. There we go. That's exactly what I wanted. Yeah, create a 3D vector from self, given the z value, which is 0. Would be cool if you could not pass anything to that. But I know that's not a choice. Okay, so now our player should move smoothly instead of jittering around everywhere. Because we're interpolating between the road positions. And he does! Look at how slow he's moving too. You can do it! But yeah, he's traveling from the center of the map to where he's trying to get to. And that's not a great thing. Not a great thing at all. You can do better, little guy. You can definitely move faster, that's for sure. So yeah, that magic number 0.01 right now is just the speed at which the player is traveling. And that's something we'll likely want to put on the player object itself at some point. But yeah, so there we go. I am not sure why he's going in a circle, but it certainly is entertaining. He should head directly towards the first road point. Instead he's doing this weird sort of odd circle. It's like our positions here are updating when they shouldn't. So let's add some debugging to see what's going on. Current road position. Transform, translation. And then let's also show me the distance. Okay, so I see what I did wrong. Distance is always 0 because it's the same same variable. So that should be an easy thing to solve. And we have to extend again. You know what? We're not going to do it there. We're going to actually move it. We're just going to do it this way because we have no need for vector 3 here. Oh, interesting. That's probably not what we want to do because the player sprite's transform is 10. And we want to keep it on 10. So I think if we always say it's 10 there, when we lerp, it'll just always lerp to 10. So it'll go from 10 to 10, which, yeah, that should be perfect. Ah, nice. Okay, so it kind of like slows down. It's interesting. It doesn't maintain its speed. It gets real slow at the end there. Shouldn't do that. Although it kind of looks cool. But it should be like a slow and steady pace. I think instead of lerping, we should calculate the direction that he should travel in and then move him in that direction. And then we cut out lerping altogether. Lerping is kind of a good idea if you want like sort of this effect though. But it's not what we're going for. I thought it was going to be a bit smoother, but it's not as linear as what I thought it was going to be. But yeah, it's still a pretty cool effect. And he's moving really slowly. Okay. So sorry. So let's ditch the lerp and instead figure out some other things. So and in fact, we don't even need to keep track of distance if we ditch the lerp, which is better anyways. So we can ditch that altogether. So to figure out the direction that the player's headed in, we want to do this in 2D first off, because we don't want to actually make him rise and fall. Though maybe that would be cool. No, we're not going to do that. It might be, but no. Or this is not meant to be 3D. We're going to keep it strictly 2D. And then the current player's position in 2D, which we should be able to get by just doing transform, translation, x, 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 y, x, y. How do we go from a 3D vector to a 2D vector? Truncate? Creates a vec2, yeah. Nice. That's what I wanted. Alright, get rid of the lerp. So we need to find, now that we have our player position and our road position, we need to find the direction between the two, which is really simple. Current road position. Actually, player position minus current road position. I did it again. Alright, so that's it, essentially, except for the fact that we have to also normalize the value. And then to travel in that direction, what you do is you take your transform translation. In this case, we're going to have to do it this way because we don't have a vec3, which is fine. No, actually, let's do it this way. Player position equals player position. Oh, we're doing plus equals. Direction times speed. So in this case, let's just do that times time dot delta seconds. So that's how you move. That's how you get the direction, and that's how you get the player to move in that direction. Just basic linear algebra. What it's called? I don't remember. It's been so long since I had a math class. Okay, so then We don't want to do this because that doesn't make sense anymore. We want to do player position. And then we want to store the new position on the transform. Equals player position dot extend, and this would be 10.0. Again, we should figure out a better way of saying that. Oh yeah, we don't need to clear out the distance there either. Alright, it might be moving really slow or something. So let's make him go faster. I'd rather see him zip around than not move at all. Let's try that. There we go. He seems to be traveling in the wrong direction though. Pretty sure he's supposed to be heading over here somewhere. Also, he's really slow. Let's speed it up and see what happens. If he keeps just trailing off in the same direction, then we know we have a problem, and perhaps this should be negative. Or perhaps these values should swap. Unrelated panic. Yeah, I don't think he's traveling to that road position. He's just traveling in the wrong direction, so I think we just swap our current road position with the player position there, and that should give us the correct direction this time. There we go. So if we sort of just draw this imaginary ray, it should be traveling here or here. Yeah, there we go. There we go. That's much smoother. And he follows our path, just like we would have expected. And of course, the spiders are at the very end, but that should work the same way still. Where as soon as we get within those 8 pixels of the spider's position, our distance check will trigger and the battle screen will show up. I think he's moving along pretty fast, so we could probably just sit here and wait for him to show up over here. I also had another thought about these lines that sort of appear when you're fully zoomed in like this. It might be because we're not anti-aliasing, and those are just gaps between the chunks. It's possible. It's unlikely, but it is possible that that's causing an issue. Cool. Yeah, so you would have defeated the enemy to move on there, so it wouldn't keep popping up in that case, because we would have despawned the enemy entity once you defeated it, or if you died, then you start the game over, right? So yeah, this line here might be the result of like a chunk boundary, and the fact that we just need to anti-alias things, although it seems weird. That might not be the case. It only happens at some camera positions and only when you're extremely zoomed in. If we zoom out, lines disappear. So it's a bit of a weird issue. But yeah, that's looking really good. And remember, our path isn't going to look so blocky. It's going to look more rounded and like smooth eventually. And in that particular case, we won't have so many issues with sort of him not walking on the road. But yeah, that works really well. I couldn't be happier with that result. So that like it's starting to feel more like a game already just from doing that. But yeah, we'll auto tile the road here, and sort of fill in these gaps along the sides. I think that's going to be a 3 tile road essentially. which means we may want bigger like endpoints, and I'm not sure how we'll do that, but we'll figure something out. We'll figure that out. It's not going to be a huge issue. So the map generation is subject to change, obviously. That's not finished. It's just a sort of our first iteration of map generation and seeing how this feels. And already I'm feeling like this is like really cool. Exactly what I wanted. It just feels like really natural, smooth. And I think the next thing to do, and this is going to be something that's really simple and easy to do, is to implement a smooth camera like following code. So essentially you follow the camera. The camera follows the player around. That seems like the ideal thing to do next. And then we sort of don't do this anymore. So I think I want that under gameplay camera. And like a new folder here. And then this would be like movement.rs. New file. That's going to be the system that does it. Yeah, we'll call this movement. And then in here we'll have a query, essentially the same as this one, where we look at the transform and the projection. Actually, I don't even care about the most of that. The projection I don't care about. But the camera and the transform we care about. And then in here we want to say, what do we want to say? We want to go through that and we want to have the camera. Actually, really, we just need the transform. And we want mutable access to it, which means that our query has to be iterable mute. And we need to mod movement publicly, mod, no, not publicly. We need to do it like this so that it makes more sense. And then this needs the mod camera in a public way. And then let's just sort those for sanity. And this has to be a public function here. And we need to use Bevy prelude. Yeah, so we also need the player query because, again, we need to know, this isn't the ideal way of doing it, but we need to know where the player is in order to follow him. So we're just gonna do it in this way. Yeah, and then this would be, well, okay. Let's name these a little bit more sanely. So the camera transform would just be the player transform. Translation. Let's just do that for right now. And in the future, we're gonna add some smoothing. Because you don't want it to follow exactly like one-to-one. It'll even seem like rather jittery if you do it like this, because it's so instantaneous, and a lot of cameras, you know, I say that and then the camera doesn't move at all. So cool. I think it's has to do with this stuff. No, that should be fine. It's because we didn't put it in here. That's right. Okay. So this would just be with system, gameplay, camera, movement, system. There we go. Yeah, we really need like a map view plugin and a battle view plugin just to try to make those separate. Whoa. Okay, so we did something unsafe. Let's think about what we did that was unsafe for a second here. Panicked at query camera transform system and roguelike camera. Accesses component Bevy transform in a way that conflicts with a previous system parameter. Allowing this would break Rust mutability rules. Consider merging conflict queries into a query set. But why? Player transform. Let's name this something more appropriate. Query camera. Camera transform. Player transform. This should just work. I don't think we're breaking Rust's mutability here. Unless what it's saying is because we're changing the camera transform in this system, this other system here can't also change the camera transform. Okay, I could see that. So what if I just do this instead then? Question mark. And then essentially move all of this stuff into there. Let's keep resources at the top. We need to also include the projection, which I said I wasn't, but now we are. Camera, and that's got to be mutable, and projection like this. Okay. Import that. This has to be mutable because we're updating it. I see. I forget why I did this. Anyways, now we need to go back to here and remove the camera movement system here, which means that we're not going to be able to. It's fine. This will work, I think. Unless I was misunderstanding the error message, which apparently I am. Why? Okay, let's just do this, because I think I know why, but it's a little strange. No, it's not a function. There we go. I think because it's a query within a query, and it doesn't like that if you're mutating one. Although we did that here. Although the mutated one was at the top. Maybe that's why. Wait, oh, we only have one query here. Didn't we do that? We did it here. Oh, and it's just there's no mutability with that one. Okay, that's why. But yeah, I think it's because it was a query and then you had a mutable query within that query. And so you break some of Rust's rules by doing that. Memory rules by doing that. So this way we avoid that because we run one query and then we run the other. We don't run them at the same time. Again, just grabbing the single player, like the single item from here would be a lot smarter than iterating and doing this kind of crazy stuff here, but it still errors. Okay, I don't understand. Let me read this again. Let me look up what query set in the book, so maybe that can give us a hint. Query set. Query sets, there we go. System cannot have multiple queries with mutability conflicts. But I'm not mutating both. We only have a transform here and we have an and here. Like I get this, like you're editing health in both of these situations. The health component in both of these situations, but that's not what I'm doing here. There's only one component only one query that's getting, that's mutable. Alright, when in doubt, go ask help. I'm getting the following error. Am I missing something here too? I feel like I am. It just says transform in a way that breaks the conflicts with a previous system parameter. Panicked at in system in a way that, alright, let's just copy this bottom part. I am not mutating two different queries to the same component between two queries in the same system. So I'm a little confused why I get this error, question mark. system. Oh, did I miss chat? Ah, I see. Okay. So essentially, this would be something like this then. And without, it wouldn't return it in the query, so this becomes this now? Oh no, it's a bool. What does that boolean mean? If you're still there. Oh, we want to mutate that one though. We want that one. We're using that one now. Oh, you're saying, oh, I think I see what you're saying. Like this should still be this, but like this. Maybe. And then the same for the player query, right? To say that it doesn't have a camera or something. Oh, you have to do it like parentheses like that. Huh. Weird. In just in this one. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Wait, hold on. Queries. Query filters. With player without. Access the health for only for friendly players, optionally with name. Okay, I see. So you're saying only the ones with only the players, and then you're even further specifying that you don't want the enemies. Using or detect any large. There's an or wrapper. Wow. And a tuple to apply all of them. Huh. Confused, I think, because this is like 2 and I don't think I want it like that. Like, it should work like this, right? It's just